4, 3.
Good evening and welcome to the March 26, 2024 Gilderland Central School District Board of Education meeting. If you all would please silence your cell phones and stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. The first item on our agenda tonight is public comment. I have a written public comment, and we have several in-person public comments. So we'll start with Angela Salavantis. If you could just come to the mic.
Board members, district office, and the school community of Gilderland. We here as the nurses are advocating for reconsideration regarding the continuation of having a district float nurse as part of our nursing team. The float nurse has been a vital addition to our district. The float nurse has helped us to fill nursing vacancies on a day-to-day basis. When a nurse is absent, our head nurse needs to facilitate coverage for that building. Nurses often need to find their own coverage if a day is a planned absence. We do not have consistent coverage available through the BOCES sub-service. This leads to the necessity for our high school and middle school nurses to float to cover the elementary buildings. This results in leaving the middle school and the high school without 2 RNs on any given day. The National Association of School Nurses recommends a minimum ratio of nurse to student depending on the needs of the student population as 1 to 750 for general population and 1 to 225 for chronically ill or developmentally disabled population. Since our float nurse has been out on leave, high school and middle school nurses have been floated to cover elementary buildings for a total of 15 days from December 5th through March 14th, leaving reduced coverage in the respected schools. Another function of our district float nurse has been to assist with required state law screening. This year, we were tasked with screening all the UPK children in addition to the required screening in our individual school buildings. This population of students are located at Christ the King, All Saints, and Linwood Reformed Church. We are required to screen over 100 students in these pre-K programs this year. This, too, has required covering a sub or floating another nurse to cover while one of our elementary nurses takes the days to accomplish the UPK screening. Our float nurse has also assisted day-to-day in high needs, higher volume schools. We have students with complex medical needs throughout our district. These students do not count the same as a student in the general enrollment. Field trips are always a challenge.
Bless you.
And when a nurse is required to accompany a student due to documented medical needs, we are required to find a nurse to go on that field trip. Having a float nurse who is familiar with our students who require more complex medical treatments is vital to their safety. In addition, many of our high-need students have limited ability to communicate their needs or their complaints. It is also an advantage to have a nurse who is part of the Guilderland District nursing team who would be aware of all of our high-risk, high-need student population. Guilderland nursing staff encounters many students dealing with mental health crises. We work in collaboration with our district counselors, social workers, administration to establish behavior and safety plans for this population of students. Having a float nurse who is oriented to each building regarding resources available is vital to assure positive outcome for our students. Year to date, as of this past March 18th, district nurses have administered 2,622 doses of a controlled substance to our students, have had management and oversee of seizure control plans for 59 individual students district-wide.
Ms. Salavantis, we're like way over the 3 minutes. Do you mind, like,
Sorry.
that's okay. Do you mind just getting through the,
Okay.
highlights? Thank you.
There's some data we submitted to the float nurses for the individual suburban councils, and we've seen over 12,000 students this calendar year. And we thank you for your time and consideration. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, we have Abigail Riley.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for hearing us out tonight. My name is Abigail Riley, and I'm a special education teacher here at Guilderland High School. And I'm here today to ask you to reconsider the float nurse position that has not been included in next year's budget. I just wanted to come to offer my perspective as a teacher who has worked very closely with the health office at the high school. For the last 2.5 years, I've been the teacher in one of our 2 self-contained CSP classrooms. I've had many students who have had varying needs of assistance from the health office, often on a daily basis. These needs range from daily administration of a controlled substance, frequent evaluations for sickness, oftentimes from students who have communication needs, all the way to assistance with personal care needs that we just can't simply accommodate in our own classroom. To say that I work closely with our school nurses would be an understatement. I relied on the health office for support almost daily. And for the past year or so, our high school nurse, Mandy Vogel, has been providing that support almost entirely on her own. As you know, we have had a vacant nurse position at the high school for quite some time. Thankfully, it was recently filled. But during the time it was vacant, there were plenty of days where Mandy was the only nurse in the building of, I believe, 1,500 students. But no matter how busy she was, if I called her for assistance, she always showed up to help. My students are just some of the individuals in this building who require frequent assistance from the nurse, but they are not the only ones. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Mandy in the halls on her way to assist a student in some part of the building, usually with a med bag and a wheelchair. In addition to the daily attention my students need, our nurses evaluate students who are sick, administer medications, call parents, file reports, maintain records, and care for the general well-being of all students and staff in the building. This is on top of screenings, maintaining physical records, and clearing all student athletes for every season, for every sport. I really don't know if that list scratches the surface on what our nurses actually do on a routine basis, but that's all that I know they do. I'm sure they do a lot more. It has been said that because enrollment is down, there is no longer a need for the float nurse. But from my experience in special education, it is not the number that matters so much as the level of need and the impact and the need of the students. Our nurses are telling us that there is a high level of need in our buildings, regardless of enrollment numbers. And as a teacher in the high school, I can tell you that they're correct. We see this every day. So all that is to say that we need our nurses and we need them to have adequate support in order to best serve our students. With a float nurse available, we can always count on our students being cared for by someone who knows them. our nurses can count on support and aid from someone they know and trust. So please reconsider adding the float nurse position so we can continue to provide a safe school environment for our kids and students. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Riley. Next, we have Tara Malloy-Grocki.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tara Malloy-Grocki, and I'm a second grade teacher at Guilderland Elementary School. And I am speaking to advocate for two things this evening. The first is also the float nurse. We need the float nurse in this district. And I also heard that it was taken away because enrollment was down. But we still have several students with significant medical needs, and we need a nurse. And whenever I see like one of these lovely ladies in my building, I feel really bad because I know that then their building is short a nurse. And their buildings, you know, the high school, the middle school are so much bigger. You know, I love seeing you, Beth. You know, I just worry about that because these kids need help. And we need the float nurse to fill a very, very, very important job in this district. So I ask you to please reconsider putting that back in. My next item is about the first grade at Guilderland Elementary School. Currently, it's slated to go from 4 sections to 3 sections. And I heard the reason for that was based on past data where there have been families leaving Guilderland after kindergarten and before first grade. So when I looked at the slide and I saw the 3 sections with 21.67 students, which is high for first grade, very high for first grade, I multiplied that by 3 to see how many kindergartners we had, and I got 65.01. However, there are currently 69 kindergartners at GES. So if none of them move, each section is going to start at 23 students. And even if 2 families move, we're going to have 67 students, and then we'll have class sizes of 22, which is still too high. And this isn't something that the Flex Zone can help us with, because I notice here that Westmere first grade also has very high numbers. So I'm not sure where that 65.01 students came from, because the actual number is higher right now at GES, and I could be missing something, and I'm totally okay if I am, but I'm just asking you if you could please reconsider restoring GES first grade to 4 sections, you know, or at least have it under review. Like, I was just very surprised that there wasn't an asterisk near Guilderland first grade or Westmere first grade, because both those numbers are very high. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tara. Next, we have Deidre Depew.
Hi again. All right. I wrote it down and put on my readers. Hello, my name's Deirdre Depew, and good evening again. I wanted to start by saying thank you. Clearly, you have heard us. You've recognized that there are areas for improvement, and you're working on a plan. And we're excited to hear about the plan for the improvement, to be part of the plan, and to be able to support the plan. So with that, I want to share with you what happened this last week a little. Some of us received an email, thank you, to the superintendent, offering to have a meeting with us. So we received the email on a Thursday, possibility for a meeting this Thursday in the middle of the day before break. It's been 6 weeks since we've asked, and then we were given little notice. They are looking to reschedule because many of us said we just can't make that work. So I appreciate that you're listening and that you're offering us that meeting. But I'm asking, as we look forward to that meeting, that we think about it with thoughtfulness and to be inclusive of all interested parents. When we started off on this, you know, there was a group of us in that self-contained classroom, those parents who sent that letter, but there's more people now. In the last 6 weeks, I've heard from more people who want to be included. There's been other people who've come here that aren't in that self-contained classroom for special education, and I think that it's time to make it more inclusive. Listen to us all, be thoughtful, let us help get this program to be better and to be more staffed, and we want to support it. So we're not asking to be placated with just a meeting on a Thursday that you could fit in, and I don't think that's what you're trying to do, but I really want to be part of that meaningful change, and I want this to be a better experience for everybody, and I say that to include everybody, all these parents who have kids with IEPs. I think that you've heard that there's room for improvement across the board, and I think you've made them of those improvements, and we'd like to see it keep going. So I stand here with my shirt today to say in the last 6 weeks, I've heard from numerous people, many inside, outside, people I've never met before, inside the district, outside the district, different schools, different circumstances, different views, who saw me, us, any of us who've wanted to share, but for some reason they're afraid to stand up here and talk to you. So I want to just share that courage is contagious, and hopefully me coming here and saying to you, we need change, I hope that encourages other people to come out here and talk to you as well. Or for when you offer us this meeting, that you are inclusive to all these parents who it's hard to get here, and to listen to us and let us be part of that positive change. So as I've been talking to people, I bumped into a friend who works who's in the Albany City School District. And they informed me of the program that they're doing, different to what we're doing, what we were doing with Special Education PTA. They have a Special Education Parent Advisory Council. That council is made up of parents from these different groups. They meet quarterly with the Special Education Department. They have different outlets to share information with parents, to give them information about upcoming activities, things that are going on, how they can be engaged, and to communicate with them. What a great program. They offered to share everything that they've done with us, to share their resources, to share their system, and to help us if that is something that our district will work with us on. So again, thank you, and I encourage you all to be courageous in coming out and helping with change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Depew. I have another public comment that was written in. This is from Mary Jane Riley, and I'll read her letter. Dear Board of Ed and Dr. Wiles, I am writing tonight to support the district float nurse position and request that it be eliminated. It requests that it not be eliminated from the 24-25 budget. The float nurse position has been vital to assure consistent coverage of nursing staff due to the absence and limited resources to obtain substitute nurses. The high school and middle school nurses have to float to cover elementary school vacancies, leaving the larger numbers with one RN for the population of students and staff. The float nurse also assists with screenings, is knowledgeable about the district's policies and procedures, assists with high care needs and volume in busier schools, and gets to know the higher complex medical needs students to assure consistent, seamless care if a nurse must be absent. As a parent of a special needs student at the high school, I rely on the nursing staff to support my son's health needs and concerns. This is my son's first year at the high school, and he has been able to develop a positive relationship with the nurse. He is comfortable with the staff and even has a familiar routine to check in when he's not feeling well. I know a lot of the students depend on these consistent, comfortable relationships with the nurses when they need medical support, and they would be greatly impacted by the elimination of the float nurse. I am advocating for this position to remain in our district to assure consistency and safety for our students and staff. Thanks, Mary Jane Riley. Linda, do we have any other public comments written in? Okay, thank you. So, the second one, I think, was from Ms. Angela, right, until you got to speak.
Oh, right.
The written public comment.
Got
Yep,
it.
so
Thank you.
we have a couple of issues. So one was the float nurse, which I know we talked about at the last meeting, and that we wanted to ask a follow-up question. And so I guess we can do that first, and then I have a question about this number of sections and then the special ed meeting. So where's Blanca? Am I looking the wrong way? Sorry, usually down there. You asked also, right, about the float nurse and how much it's costing the district. I think the financial piece is what you asked. I don't know if you wanna
Versus,
follow up.
right, versus an agency nurse. And so, Marie, I'm not sure if you could follow up on that?
Sure, I have it right here. After the last meeting, I think the board asked us to do a comparison of what we have been spending on a float nurse versus what we have spent on a contractual arrangement with Nurse Connections or others. So the full FTE for the float nurse with salary and benefits is just a little over $80,000, which is, close to where we are with the teacher FTE, honestly. So it's about $80,068. And then just this year, we just looked at what we had spent for a contract nurse, and that was about $6,000. So that was the contrast in the cost. And I just want to comment, the conversation about float nurse, to my knowledge, had nothing to do with enrollment. We added it in when we had the extra COVID dollars because of the many things we were dealing with the pandemic. And so it was a function of having the resources through ESSER and GEAR and ARP. And that money is now going away at the end of, September 2024.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kelly.
One of the ladies mentioned the requirement for UPK screening. Is there any availability of, can we use some of that UPK money that we have? Isn't it part of that to like support the UPK program and the nursing?
Rachel, I'm going to look to you.
Yeah, so the way it works is that the funding we get from the state and federal UPK grants goes back to the sites as a tuition fee per student. So there are some services that we provide and some services that the school themselves are able to provide. So the sites where we send the float nurse are ones that don't already have their own certified nursing staff. So for example, we have a class at St. Madeleine Sophie, but our float nurse doesn't do that because it's covered by the nurse that we provide for their site.
Seems to me like they should provide the nurses for all of their sites if we're paying the same. I don't know much about it.
So our nurses have to do the screenings for the UPK students?
Yes.
But even though we didn't have really an option with the but, you know, it's not like we had another nurse hired for this extra
That's
work.
right. So the way UPK works, and this is problematic, is that we can only contract with the sites that are providing the service for a flat dollar amount, which is $5,400, and that has to cover everything that has to happen for that student. And it obviously does not. It is very low. When Assemblymember Fahey was here a couple weeks ago, she talked about proposals on the table in the state negotiations to raise that $5,400 to $7,000, which might help our partners provide some additional services. But at this point, we're not paying them enough in order to do that. And we can't draw from the unused portion of dollars, which are a lot, in order to cover other expenses.
Right, unless we have, if we were to draw from that, it would be to increase our enrollment, not to provide for supplemental costs.
Seems like it should.
It just seems like,
Even though it's like a fraction of like what we're discussing,
know,
but
like
something
how
I zoned in on.
sometimes like, oh, you'd want a building sub, not just a sub if there's a need because of the community and the relationships built, you know, so then I would think, to me, that's a huge draw for having that nurse. Like, I didn't realize how the coverage works if somebody is absent. To me, that seems kind of crazy.
So if I could just speak as a nurse, it takes nurses time to get acclimated, and it takes time for you to build a rapport with your patients, especially if they're pediatric patients. I'm sure you are familiar with that, Dr. Butterfield. And so I definitely agree with that piece that, you know, it's almost a disservice to have somebody who isn't familiar with the student population. I just want to put that out there. I'm definitely torn here and feeling really quite badly that we can't keep a float nurse, though I do understand the terrible situation we are in economically. Would it be fair to say that this is an example of something that we cannot provide due to the tax tertiary issues that we are facing, in case anyone from the town board is listening?
Well, we are going to talk about, we've got budget workshop ahead of us, and unfortunately, I have some not great news to share with the board. Not about tax tertiary cases, but we do have our bids in for our energy costs, and they are higher than anticipated. So I will share that when we get there, but I know there's a couple other topics. So.
Yeah, but oh, go ahead, Kelly.
Is it common for other staffing units to have to find their own replacement for a pre-scheduled day off? Is that like a thing?
Yeah,
For
that to me,
anybody
that seems
else?
also
Other
crazy.
than, like, teachers don't have to do that, right? Or
Well, I think some of that happens. I'll
some
turn
of
to
it
Regan on
happens, like
this.
maybe.
Teachers use the subservice, the BOCES subservice, to put in for an absence.
But we would always provide, they don't have to like go out and like, maybe misunderstanding the concept there, but.
So is it different than with how the nursing?
Yeah, the nurses
subs?
don't have, Angela actually mentioned that
The
at the
BOCES
start,
piece.
they don't have access to the BOCES
Subservice.
subservice like teachers do.
But
Sometimes teachers put in for a sub and don't get one.
Okay, right,
that.
right.
That's what I was going to say, because there's no guarantee that they have subs, because there are a lot of classes that would end up like using a TA or something like that, or
Internal
combining.
coverage, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Rebecca, sorry.
I don't think the float nurses on our like wish list? It's not, correct?
It was not, no.
Okay. I mean, that's something we could consider adding to the wish list, right?
Add it to the wish list.
And that's what I was wondering too, when we go, I know we are doing the workshop after this, and so this is really when we kind of like, right, add and take away to see.
Well, we don't have a state budget yet.
Right.
So we're not in a place where we have knowledge that we have any additional resources to deal with. And so I guess I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but we can circle back. So right now, best estimates are saying that the state budget won't be done until, at best, the 8th of April, but more likely the 15th. It will be the board's day to adopt the budget on the 16th. So we may not know until the day before if, in fact, there have been restorations to the foundation aid that would affect us. Because remember, there were 2 changes to foundation aid. One was the safe harmless, which everyone is talking about, but which has no impact on us. And the other is the change to the inflation factor, which did have an impact on us to the tune of about $350,000. But I don't know if that will be, if foundation aid is restored, I'm not sure if that part will be there. It's been very quiet in the proposals, that specific piece. So either way, we won't know until, at best, right before the board adopts the budget, if we have additional funds to work with. There is no problem adding it to the wish list. There's no problem with adding it to the wish list.
I know with the presentations, you have the tables with, I guess, the wish list, right, in the
Yes.
cost? I mean, I would propose that we add that there with the number, now that we have the cost. So because the state budget isn't done, and it sounds like, even if it's a day where everybody will have to decide, at least you know what numbers you're talking about versus not having any of that information. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but it doesn't sound like anybody sees this, opposes this idea of having floaters.
No, I'd add it on.
I'd prefer to have it on the list with that, so it's something where when the run comes in, then we can actually see.
Yeah, we have the list and the data that supports it, so we know exactly what to do quickly.
Do we need to make like a motion for that, or what do we do?
We'll add it to the list.
Okay.
It's not hard to do.
And then the sections about first grade, I guess, I don't know if that's like a number.
Well, I can address that. You know, Tara, that had a little asterisk the day before the presentation, and then it didn't get an asterisk the day of. And I think it's just as the shifting projections were used. But I want to say this, that slide that everyone looks at is a snapshot in time of March 5th. We look at the section numbers, all of the section numbers all along. So Dr. Lockwood has talked with me about that first grade. We're watching all of that. And there are other ones as well. But we have the 4 unassigned built in, and that would probably be something we would address with an unassigned as we see how the numbers go. But it's on our radar just because it doesn't have an asterisk.
And then the last topic was the special ed meeting and the programs. I mean, I think it's great that there is a start to have a meeting with the parents. I mean, I think that's probably what was the first part of the agreement, right, was to meet with the parents. And then, I know it's my last board meeting, but I think going forward, it sounds like this was like a topic of discussion in making strides towards what is that space where there is some collaboration with district and parents. And so I don't know if any of you have any comments on that or just plan to follow up.
Oh, no, I'll definitely be like following up and keeping that close. I mean, because I've been part of that group that's been discussing with parents, and parents are coming out of the woodwork. It's like all of a sudden, because the parents were coming to the meetings, it almost gave permission and a level of comfort for other parents to say, okay, you know what, we're here too. And I love the idea that was brought up for Albany. That would be wonderful to be able to collaborate with the district and actually feel like, and I'm speaking as a parent, but also, I guess, as a board member, but I think it's an important partnership, because at the end of the day, I mean, we want all of our students to be successful. That's going to be part of making our students successful, is having a solid partnership.
Sounds good. So at the April meeting, I don't know if you guys can follow up with that, Kelly, and also the float nurse piece being on the spreadsheet. Good luck making those decisions.
Can I just jump in on the meeting? We were just taking a shot in the dark that maybe it would work before the break. I thought it was a long shot, but we wanted to just at least try. So we'll come back.
Great, thank you, Dr. Wells. Next on the agenda, we have the Budget Development Workshop, and I'll turn this over to Dr. Wiles.
So I sort of laid the foundation and the timing of all of the machinations that need to happen at the state level to answer the question of what additional resources will we have available to us? Because at this point, we've really allocated everything that we know that we can cover with our local resources, staying within the tax cap. So there was a slide in the presentation that talked about some things that were unknown back on March 5th, and one of them, and it was a big one, was we were awaiting bids from the consortium where we purchase our electricity and gas. Those estimates, so that bid was awarded earlier this week, and it is significantly higher than anticipated. And there was what appeared to be a typographical error in one part of it that we're trying to get clarification on, so I won't touch that piece, but there was another part that was correct. And it looks like our electric costs will go up approximately $100,000 more than we had anticipated in the March 5th data. And a lot of that is connected to costs and usage really returning to pre-COVID levels. So I spoke at length today with Cliff Nooney, who is the keeper of all of this, and I was thinking of Judy Slack's question from a couple weeks ago about the credits we get from our remote net solar array. And I said, what's the connection here? How come we can't save that $100,000 because of our remote net farm? And he said that if we did not have that farm, this increase, we would have felt to the tune of $250,000. So while the number is big, this investment we made with the solar farm really is helping us stay on the better side of a not great situation. So in saying all that, we are going to need to look at where we can cover that additional $100,000. So we got that data today. Of course, it's always the day before the board meeting, so we couldn't really do a thorough job for all of that. We obviously will do a lot of looking between now and when we meet again, and I can certainly keep the board updated as we refine those numbers. But I say all that because if we do end up with some additional resources from the state, at least $100,000 of it is already accounted for.
And what was that tax hit for us, the reevaluation of the, wasn't it like $300,000 that we lost, 380 or something? Not the Save Harmless, but the other.
The inflation was $350,000. And I don't know, Andrew, have you heard any talk about that at all? It's not even on their charts.
It's not getting,
the conversation about it.
if it were to be restored, it would just be because they froze everything and pushed off to the future addressing the formula. But all of the public and behind-the-scenes conversations we hear are focused on the Safe Harmless provision, which, to be fair, districts that are affected by it are affected
Profoundly.
significantly. It's not an existential crisis for us, but still significant money.
It's always a crisis for somebody.
So obviously, we will keep our eye on all of those things, but by the 16th, the board, it's the last day for adoption in order to meet all of our other legal obligations for the timing of the advertising of the vote and so on. So that will be the deadline.
Is there any? Go ahead, Kelly.
Have they, it doesn't really, not relevant to this conversation, right, well, it is, but not currently. With the Future Ready Task Force, are they gonna include, like, thought of solar, more involvement of solar in our world? Like, panels and things like on our actual buildings that could assist with our, we're going to have a lot more energy costs in the next 10 to 20 years.
I have not heard that part, anything about that in the conversation. We're really talking about the teaching and learning parts of the capital construction and what the learning spaces would look like and what programs and instruction should look like. I don't know if they've spilled over into those infrastructure kinds of things. We haven't really directed those subcommittees to talk about infrastructure because the general facilities planning committee, that's the one that talks about all of those things. So I don't think it's been on the list. But they've just begun their work too,
Well,
so
I'm
there's
sure
a long way to
eventually they'll
go.
talk about the buildings and the structures and things
Yes,
like that, so
yep.
hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, that was my understanding at first. It was more of the curriculum
Yeah,
or
sure, it's
teaching
gonna lead
piece,
back- that's
teaching and
gonna lead
learning,
it.
and then facilities, because that would have to go hand in hand with that piece. I mean, that's why we went on the field trip, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, just something that seems obvious, since with electric buses coming and everything else, it's like, let's decrease our electricity, because we're gonna have a lot more of it.
So will the electricity costs be on, like, will you have the number by the next time we meet?
We should have it. Well, we could have had it, we should have had it today.
Oh, okay.
Except that the way the report came in, it looked like there was some problematic decimal points in there.
Okay.
So, and they didn't clarify by the time we came here tonight, so
Okay.
we should know very soon what the actual impact is.
Are there other specific items for the budget development piece? I don't know, Kelly, I know you asked before about the propositions with the buses. And I know we're voting on that today, right, down in action. So would it be better if people had questions about that to ask now? Even though that's kind of separate a little bit from the,
To do the rest, and then.
We can address them before you vote
There's
on
gonna
Okay.
be some, I'm gonna have some discussion around that, so we could do maybe down here.
okay, does anybody else have questions for the budget workshop piece?
Right. You know what, actually, I do. I'm sorry. I'm still a little confused with, I know that with the self-contained, we're going to be taking one section and taking it from the middle school and bringing it up to the high school. And I guess I'm just a little concerned with taking, I mean, I know that we're adding the class, but yet we're only, the elementary are getting an extra one, I believe. They're going, it was going from 3 to 4, and there's an increase across the board of 6 students. And so the high school also is going from 2 to 3, and they have an increase of 6 students. But the middle school is going from 13 to 12, and they're going from 2 classes to 1. So I guess just at least I'm a little concerned with that we're taking a class, like that this is going to be overwhelmed by this, or that we're not just adding, I mean, I know we're tight, but that just makes me very nervous, especially with this.
So actually, we spoke about this today, and it looks like the middle school section will be about 10 students. But this is all a work in progress right now, but it looks like it's going to be about 10 students.
And then the remaining 2 would go up to the high school?
A lot of this is contingent on individual CSE meetings that are happening right now.
I understand,
So
I'm just, I would feel remiss if I didn't put it out there, because at this point, like, we talk about inclusion, and I would really feel bad if we were taking kids at a middle school level and putting them up at the high school where they're not acclimating with their own peers.
Only if it's requested.
Okay.
It's a work in progress still, Kim.
Okay.
Any other questions? No, unless there's something else for you to share, Dr. Wells, do you want me to go on?
I'm good.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to consent items. This includes the minutes of the March 5th and March 12th board meetings, CPSE and CSE recommendations, personnel action, and financials. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Gloria, second. Judy, any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 8-0. And next, we'll move on to information items. Superintendent information, Dr. Wiles?
Okay, first, a quick reminder here. Monday, April 8th, we will have an early dismissal because of the solar eclipse, and this is due to the timing of the eclipse, which happens right in the middle of our dismissals. So the eclipse will begin at 2:12 and end at 4:26. So the high school will be dismissing at 10:30, the middle school will be dismissing at 11:45, and the elementary schools will be dismissing at 1 o'clock. And then in addition, all the districts in the Suburban Council have planned to have athletic contests start by or sooner than 5 p.m. and warm-ups and practices at about 4:30 in the morning. 4:30 in the afternoon. Oh my goodness.
I was like, wow, they're really flexible.
We have early bird athletes here. And there's been a lot of discussion, and I saw there was a story in today's paper about how schools are handling this. And I just want to give the lay of the land among the 24 school districts that are in the capital region, BOCES, unless this has changed in the last 24 hours. But there are actually 9 districts who are going to be open for the full day, regular day of instruction on April 8th. There's another 9, of which we are one, that are doing some variation of a theme of an early dismissal in order to avoid having kids on buses during the window of time there. And then there are 5 districts which are closing fully. I think there's 3 in Schenectady County, and I can't remember the other 2. But so we are in the realm of how people are addressing this, recognizing that the problem that we're solving is we don't want kids outside potentially looking at the sun during the time when this is happening at 2:12 and 4:26. So that is our plan, and I'm happy to take any questions.
There would have been I'm sorry. Judy?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think dismissing the elementary kids late, I mean, some people, I was in an elementary school today, and some of the kids are saying, well, my brother gets out at half a day, but keeping them here through lunch and till 1 o'clock makes childcare and after-school plans, I think, easier for those who are the people who need it the most. And that's the way we've traditionally done it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we have an early dismissal because of weather, elementary students actually finish their day at 2 o'clock.
Right.
And then they can go on to the regular aftercare. But we spoke with transportation about what time would we need to have dismissal at the elementary level to get students home before the eclipse began, and it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It felt familiar when I was reading it, and I was glad to see, and I think parents will be, because you just can't keep second graders from looking up at the sun and thinking how neat it is, and we don't want that. And I read today that the effects may not be known for quite a while on what it's done to your eyes, so the more protection we take, I think, the better we are. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I was one of the folks in favor of, letting especially the teachers have the day off, but then you came forward with the heavy costs associated with that. So I'm not sure if that's something you're able to disclose, but it would have been very expensive to actually give the day off, and given our economic situation, that's not something that we can do. So I now support, and I'm thankful for your decision.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, it's not sorry.
Oh, I'm
Dr.
sorry,
Wiles.
there you go. So my next item, I just want to share that last week, Wednesday, I was able to bring 10 high school students, all young ladies, to visit the Waterville Arsenal, which I knew nothing about prior to this, to have a tour of the facilities and to talk about kind of the non-traditional STEM professions that are available to women. And we drove over to the Arsenal. We toured several really amazing buildings and facilities to see where cannons have been made since 1813, since right after the start of the War of 1812, and how that facility has evolved over time, and the number of women who are in leadership positions within that organization. So we had a tour, and then had a roundtable discussion where a number of women who have very different roles within that entity, really, because it's a a lab, and it's an arsenal, and it's its own little community in and of itself. So I was able to bring 10 students. We had a great time. It was Lila Whipple, Hallie Zeka, Nana Frimpong, Violet McCutcheon, Ellen Smittis, Sonia Shagul, Flora Wu, Ashika Yalamachi, Angelina Mantu, and Ashley Kapuzinski. So we went, we took a bus over there. Patrice Viverito came and was going to be writing a great story. They took 1 million photos. We had a lunch and a roundtable discussion, and it was just a really wonderful day to spend the day. And it reminded me how long it's been since I've organized a field trip. So I did do some learning there again about permission slips and such. So it was all good. But I really appreciated the invitation, and I think all of our young scholars had a great time.
And did the people at Waterville also appreciate it?
Oh, my goodness, they were kind of over the moon. The invitation came from an individual who works there who has 2 Guilderland grads and another youngster in 3rd grade. And then there was someone on the panel whose children also go to Guilderland. So they were very happy to have us. It was great.
That's wonderful.
It was great.
What a nice story. Thank you.
And last but not least, nope, it's not last but not least. Second to last but not least. Last week, Friday, March 15th, we had our final superintendent's conference day of the school year. And I want to recognize Rachel Anderson, who did a tremendous job working with our team of administrators to put together a huge list of learning opportunities for one and for all. And I think the feedback was really very positive. So I'm going to say, you want to hit the highlights of the feedback?
Sure. So we did put out a survey that people could start responding to that day. And as of today, we had 262 responses, which I think is good. I think they're still slowly trickling in. So if anyone is listening and hasn't done their survey yet, please do so. And overall, it was very positive. Some of the highlights, most of the workshops were led by teachers and other faculty and staff in the district, which was very, very well received. We had some time for people to do some work at the transitions. So we had some of our UPK partners come in and meet with our kindergarten teachers. We had a session where 5th grade teachers and 6th grade teachers could collaborate. Those were very popular and had great feedback. We also had can do going forward. And we had a few outside presenters, one of whom was Dr. Deirdre Muldoon from the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, who did 2 sessions for our K-5 faculty. Not only were both sessions completely full, but I heard very amazing feedback from her, and she shared some of her resources with us. So we're going to try to get her back for another session in the future. But overall, it was a great day, and every session that I was able to pop into, people were interacting and making things to take back to their classroom or learning tools, technology tools they could take back to their classroom. So I think overall it was a success, and we're going to try to improve on it for next year.
That's nice.
All right, my last item. I know we're only in the middle of the agenda, Seema, but we want to recognize your years of service here, and the board and I and all of the district office would just like to thank you for all of your good work here in the district. You were first elected to serve in May of 2015, and you've been here for 9 years on the board. You've been on all 5 of our subcommittees, including DEI, and you've been just instrumental in helping us get that DEI work off the ground, and our whole community has to be thankful to you for that. But you've done business practices, audit, communications, policy, you've just done them all, and so we so appreciate that. So we want to thank you. And, you know, getting plaques made is not as fast as it used to be. So you have to come back for your plaque. But in the meantime,
thank you so much.
Flowers for you. And thank you, Blanca, for being our service.
Thank you.
Seema, thank you so much. No, thank you for your service. And it's so nice to know we'll have connections in high places.
That's awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. 9 years went by super fast. And it is bittersweet. I'm excited to do this new position, but I'm honestly going to miss being here and doing the work. It's definitely a special place. So thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is board president information. This first item is board policy review, A through G. This is up for information. Any questions? Next is the Cap Region BOCES budget and board election vote. I'll just read the information here about that. And I think there's a couple of people from the board attending. Is it Katie and?
I'm going,
Oh,
yeah.
Judy and, and Gloria? And Blanca? Oh, it's 4 people.
And
Yeah.
and I'm going to.
Oh, Dr. Wells. That's great.
Isn't that the virtual one where you?
No, this is the one where they serve dinner.
Yeah, the kids make it, it's
Culinary
wonderful.
Yes.
They're so proud, it's just
Do you need
it's
people to
wonderful.
go to it, or is it?
They invited us. They sent it.
Yeah, no, I just didn't know if this was like, I'm thinking of a different vote. Go ahead.
Oh,
do
no,
your
so
thing.
this is the vote too, right? So the Cap Region,
That's
BOCES,
different.
yeah,
BOCES budget, yeah.
yes, the BOCES budget and board election vote will take place on Wednesday, April 24th. There's 2 seats up for election, so this is the date of the special board meeting that takes place at 8 a.m. So this is the one I think that you need to have like a quorum.
Yes.
Yep. And is that at the district office for everybody?
Okay, so it's gonna be here. All of
that
them,
the
all
plan,
of them
Marie?
I've done have been
Yes.
virtual, so this will be the first time I do it in person.
Yes, it's about 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's so quick.
Okay.
If that long.
Maybe I remember. Maybe we did like that last year. I don't remember.
And my last item is the upcoming Board of Education election, which is May 21st. Petitions are available through the district clerk for any resident who might be interested in running. 43 signatures of eligible district voters are required. This is based on 2% of the voting population in last year's election. There are 3 open seats. The candidate with the highest total, who is not running as an incumbent, will serve as a 3-year term that begins May 22nd, so the day after the vote, and that will run till June 30th, 2027. The candidates, regardless of whether or not they're incumbent, with the other 2 highest vote totals, will serve a 3-year term of office July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2027. In order to be eligible to run for the Board of Ed, nominating petitions with 43 signatures or more from qualified voters in the district must be submitted to the district clerk on or before April 22nd by 5 p.m. Anyone who has questions about the duties and responsibilities of a board member may contact the superintendent, board president, or any other current member of the Board of Ed. A candidate must be able to read and write, be 18 years of age, a qualified voter, and a district resident for at least 1 year prior to the date of the vote on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. Further qualifications and information is available in the packet through the district clerk. And I think there's 6 packets have been taken?
Linda
6
could tell us.
packets. Linda, is that-
7?
Oh, 7?
7 packets?
How
Yeah,
many packets have been taken for the nominee?
or at least that's the last I heard.
6.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to action items. We'll start with school business. Dr. Van Alstyne?
Thank you very much. My first item are resolutions to authorize school bus and vehicle bond purchases for the May 21st school budget vote. We will have 2 proposals on the ballot for vehicle purchases. These were outlined at last week's board meeting, or last board meeting. The first proposition is in line with our conventional purchase plan. It's $1.281 million. This would be for the purchase of 365 passenger buses, 365 passenger buses with chains, a 24 passenger wheelchair capable bus, a transportation maintenance truck, and a skid steer. And then the second proposition is for the purchase of 165 passenger and 130 passenger electric bus. The purchase price to the district and the bond amount would be $407,500. That reflects a deduction that's taken off the top at the dealer end from the New York State Bus Incentive Program. But as we've talked about throughout the process, the governor's budget included a proposal that would make this fully reimbursable to the district as transportation aid. But the enacted budget has not come out yet, and we would only move forward with this purchase were the enacted budget to include full aidability for the purchase.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the resolution to authorize, yeah.
Talk about it first?
Well,
We
first we
need a
make a
motion.
resolution,
Oh, sorry.
right? For the, I'm sorry. I'm at the wrong
I
spot.
screwed you up.
That's okay, for the budget vote and elections to authorize the school bus vehicle proposition. So Judy, second, Gloria? Okay, now any questions, comments? Go ahead, Kelly.
I know there was a discussion in the business practices of the reasoning behind putting them two separate, because I'd like to see them together, so I'd love to hear the reason behind why they're separate. Conventional versus electric, or like giving the option to deny one or the other,
So
or not approve.
there are a number of factors that were considered that for splitting them. One is, without a doubt, we would like to purchase the vehicles in the first proposition. And so that is an amount that's in line with what we've traditionally been purchasing. The electric bus purchase, the Business Practices Committee, the district electric school bus transition committee, all agree that the value in the purchase would be if it's fully aidable. So separating them in that way, one of them is more contingent, right? So if the enacted budget does not include the proposal to make the electric bus purchase fully aidable, then we would not want to move forward with it. And so having it as a separate proposition lets us try to communicate that to the public when we're putting them forward. And then finally, it lets us view the relative interest in electric buses as a separate proposition.
Is there any, conflict with putting them together? Like, I think they should be put together, because not that I don't want to give people options, but it's coming. We don't have an option of not getting buses. And I think you had a really good reasoning for getting these two buses. Training, familiarization, all of the things that we discussed last meeting, and we don't have an option, so, I guess here's the question, is if it went through, we did it one proposition, and for some crazy reason, the budget didn't get included, but Dr. Wiles and I looked at it, and it's in both the Senate and Assembly budgets. Nobody's contesting it at this moment, until if they do, right? But
I mean, I would be worried if there was, even though there's not an option, let's say you put them together and they need the first proposition, they need those buses,
Yeah.
right? That if there were people just not wanting electric buses, regardless, we know that this is required by the state, but they wanted to make their voice known and vote against it, and then what?
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
But my understanding from this is that we wouldn't be putting it on the ballot unless we had assurances
Right.
in the state budget that it was reimbursable.
That one piece, though.
That one piece, yeah, no, I understand that. Is that correct? Like, is that
The
what this
electronic,
is
we
for?
wouldn't put it on the ballot unless we had the assurance from the state that it was refund.
we may
This
not
is-
have the assurance from the state.
Well, our budget's going to be out in May, so,
Yes.
April.
So
Maybe.
the question that we've not fully answered is what happens if we don't have an enacted budget before we have to print ballots?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about.
Oh, I see.
I see.
So you're saying, in this scenario is, both of them get approved, budget comes out, and there's no funding in there for that budget,
We don't have,
and
we
then
don't
we
have to do it.
cannot go through with the purchase. But you're saying, if the funding was not in the budget, we would be forced to go through with that purchase without the funding? So,
This authorizes us to borrow. It doesn't mean we have, it's a limit, right? And so one of the things we're very careful about when we present the purchase plan each year is what is the actual cost? If you've bought a consumer vehicle in the last couple of years, you know that prices fluctuate tremendously. We can't borrow beyond this. Right? So we have, for the conventional purchase, $1.281 million. That is what we're authorized to borrow for those 6 buses, the truck, and the skid steer. We don't have to borrow that full amount. So if somehow we got a discount that hadn't appeared when we got quotes, we would not borrow that full amount because we wouldn't need to. The second one, if we authorize borrowing $407,500 and then we don't make the purchase, we don't have to borrow, we would not borrow the money.
Still don't see a reason why to split it out. I don't understand the gauging the interest, that means nothing really to me. So, other than gauging the interest, it was.
I mean, if people, like I said, if they want to vote against it because they are against that, they just want to make their voice known that I'm against this movement towards electric vehicles, and then, they both, I don't want to put it out there where they need to rely on people to make that choice.
Is there some movement out there?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I mean, people use their vote to voice their opinion,
Exactly.
right? So, to me, that's a risky, I don't know, I think it's risky.
Well, if we think that they will have strong feelings, why not give them an opportunity to express them in
Yeah.
a way that doesn't affect
Impact the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what we
I
need to
think
do.
it's a bad decision, but.
I mean, it's also highlighting that one of the purchases we're going to make, we'll spend it, we'll get 8 on it, but there will be a net cost to the district. As we talk about it, when I clear the second proposal for electric buses, there will not be a net cost to the district for those purchases.
It needs to
And
be
that-
communicated to people
It's different.
very, very clearly.
I agree. I think it's incumbent upon us to communicate that.
Yeah.
Because what it looks
Absolutely.
like, if you're not sort of in the weeds about this, is that the board is presenting 2 different options. And we don't want that to be the impression, right? We want it to be that we are supporting both endeavors fully, and this is why.
Well, that would be the communication piece has to be there, right?
I can't tell you sometime, I flipped over the ballot and you think I've read every single word on there and fully understand what was going on in the ballot? No, I checked it yes or no. Now we're giving this confusing option of 2 propositions. We're like, do I check 1? Do I check 2? If you wanted both, you would have to check both on the ballot?
There's a-
Do you
there are
think
separate
relying on people
positions.
actually really reading the instructions in their 30 seconds they have to go vote? Well, we need to really
Well, they might
communicate
just
it
see
in
the
the.
one.
They might just be like, okay, I got 1. Check the first one that I see, got it, who cares? And now we'll be out. The possibility of reimbursement of $400,000 for, I don't know.
Well, they could see just electric vehicle and then have it be 1, and then say, oh, no, I'm against that. and
What
then
if they
vote
come in
no.
there and they check 2 and not 1?
Well, yeah, there's no
Because they're
prediction.
just like, my friend told me to check 2 and not 1, and everybody does that.
I think
then we'd
I think
only get
it's
2 buses, right?
I think it's on the
So-
district to make sure they communicate. I mean, what was it, just a few years ago where we had the, what did we have? Oh, the capital project that failed, and then we talked about the communication piece, like,
Right.
I don't know who's on communications, I think Katie, you're in charge of that, but like, that would be, like you said, Rebecca,
think
we have to be clear.
Yes, I think we decided last meeting that we would put this on the agenda, communication of this for, we meet, at our next meeting, so it is on the agenda, how to communicate this to the
I mean, did
stakeholders.
business practices kind of talk about both options and the pros and cons to it?
Yep.
I'm firmly that it should be 1, but I'll go with what I'll go with. It doesn't seem like I'm the only one that's not leaning in that direction, so, thanks.
To Kelly's point, I think there's going to be a time when they will be 1, but right now, we're dealing with kind of the unknown entity around the purchase of traditional buses that we know we need no matter what. But the second proposition has got a lot of contingencies connected to it, and I think contingencies associated with what happens at the state budget level, not necessarily how people feel about, to me, that's it'll be an interesting data point, but it's not the reason why we split them out. It really is a matter of, we want to make sure we get the buses that we need in order to maintain our fleet as we have mapped out the replacement plan, because to lose the proposition overall would really put us in a very difficult position in transportation overall. Like, we would fall behind in our replacement, we need these vehicles. So I think that's the more salient reason for keeping them as 2 separate things. A year from now, when we're needing to make a full transition, I think it would be all 1.
We could quite possibly be in, as Assemblymember Fahey mentioned, if however the election goes in November, we could quite possibly be, this might be an only opportunity, depending on if there's federal funding backing electric vehicles next year and for the next 4 years. So there'll be a big, huge shift, and I'm just saying you might be missing out on $400,000. I'm not saying that would happen. I have no idea what.
I think
thought
not
process is.
everyone also knows like about the mandates that are coming down, and kind of to your point of people who just kind of flip over and half read, especially because we've been talking for months about how this district's in financial straits. If people aren't paying attention and they're not looking at what we're sending out and looking at our communications, and then they flip it over and they see the district's claiming poverty, but yet they have money to buy electric buses, not knowing the mandates, not knowing that we have the money coming in. That's, if it's combined, that's my fear, is that we're gonna take that hit from, like you said, the people that flip it over and aren't reading our communications and aren't paying attention and they're not aware of the mandates.
I think it's just the opportunity of not telling people to, if you want both, click both. Which is, it's going to rely on communications, so I'm going to leave it at that and be fine with it.
I mean, I can see your point too, like, people could say, oh, they're asking for two things, you know? But I feel like there's probably pros and cons for both. I'm hoping that, it sounds like business practices weighed out the options. But, were you gonna say something, Katie?
No, I just mean now we have some work to do on communications, so.
Yes, we do.
So I think this is, oh, go ahead.
That's a.
Are there any other
kick it to
questions? I think
communications.
this is a roll call vote, right?
It is.
Is it, or the next one
Yes.
is?
Yeah, I think they
They're
both
roll
are.
call.
Oh, it doesn't say. Oh, it does. Okay, cool.
I think we're ready, yep.
Mrs. Blasiak? Just to be clear, are we voting to do two separate?
Yes.
Or, okay, yes.
Dr. Butterfield?
Yes.
Mrs. DePiero?
Yes.
Mrs. Gonzalez Parker?
Yes.
Mrs. Person?
Yes.
Dr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Slack?
Yes.
And Mrs. Tallhill?
Yes.
Okay, passes 8-0.
Thank you. My next item is resolution to authorize bonding for $4.99 million for the repayment of the Crossgates tax certiorari claim. Again, this amount includes both the library and the school district's component. So the school district refund is approximately $4.75 million. The remainder is the library's refund. This is also a roll call vote.
Can I have a motion to approve the serial bond? Nobody wants to. Let's see, Judy, second, Kim? Any questions or comments? No?
I wish we didn't have to.
This is absolutely terrible, and we have no choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
This is a terrible position we are in.
Ready?
Yep.
Mrs. Blasiak?
Yes.
Dr. Butterfield?
Yes.
Mrs. DePiero?
Yes.
Mrs. Gonzalez Parker?
Can I say, yes?
Mrs. Person?
Yes.
Dr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Slack?
Yes.
And Mrs. Tallhill?
Yes.
Okay, passes 8-0.
Thank you. Much easier. Next item is an internship agreement with Western Governors University for internship and practicing experience with students in our schools.
Can I have a motion to approve the internship agreement? Katie, second, Gloria. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. My next item is a service agreement with Freedom First Psychological Services, which is located in Latham, New York. It provides clinical and educational consultation based on the principles of applied behavior analysis from board-certified analysts and licensed behavior analysts.
Can I have a motion to approve the service agreement with Freedom First? Blanca, second, Rebecca. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. My next item is our annual risk assessment or our internal audit. This is an annual tool that is for the school district's use in ensuring that we have best practices within the business office and school district. It's conducted by Questar 3 BOCES. We've reviewed it with the audit committee and shared it with the board.
Can I have a motion to approve the annual risk assessment? Rebecca, second. Katie, any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
All right, thank you. My next item is a scholarship. The Guilderland Girls Softball League would like to set up a scholarship that would be for 2 graduating high school seniors who are alumni of the Guilderland Girls Softball League and who in their scholastic careers have embodied the principles of Guilderland Girls Softball. Eligibility requirements include at least 1 year of JV or varsity school softball, along with participating in the Guilderland Girls Softball League.
Can I have a motion to approve the softball scholarship award? Kelly, second. Judy, any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you. And my final item is the continuation of our emergency preparedness agreement with Our Lady of Mercy Life Center. This would be to serve as an evacuation site for an emergency for clients and staff of the center.
Can I have a motion to approve the emergency preparedness sheltering agreement? Kim, second. Katie, any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Andrew. Next, we have superintendent in action, Dr. Wiles.
I just have one item this evening, and it's a request to approve a co-curricular club at the middle school called the Light Seekers, and Mr. Reynolds and Mr. Rogotsky are the advisors.
Can I have a motion to accept the co-curricular club approval? The Light Seekers. Gloria, second. Blanca, any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 8-0. Thank you. Next, we'll go on to board committee reports. We'll start with audit. Rebecca?
So we met on March 13th. We met the new claims auditor. We reviewed the draft internal audit annual risk assessment that we just approved. In addition to that risk assessment, the internal auditor generally conducts 1 or 2 special audits. This year's audit will focus on Medicaid billing, but it's just been delayed a little bit as we transition between auditors. We don't have a next meeting scheduled yet.
Thank you, Rebecca. Next, business practices.
We didn't meet.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. Next is communications. Katie?
We meet on the 8th.
On April 8th?
Yeah, on April 8th at 3:30.
Thank you. Next, DEI. I'm not sure who's reporting. To Kelly?
I was just trying to look up the notes because I can't remember what happened this morning, much less what happened 3 days ago. I didn't come prepared. I know we did a learning component with the videos for different ways of learning. It was a great video of that
neurodiversity.
young lady climbing up the
playground.
The playground thing. That was really great. Lisa Knowles came and spoke about a special education bit for the schools and gave some details about graduation rates and numbers and whatnot. We had what was our DEI in action? I can't remember.
Leah and Derek talked about their various presentations around the district, the work they did on the superintendent's conference day, various visits to buildings to work with equity action teams. We talked a little bit about our climate and culture survey that we're hoping to get out at the end of April. And I think those were the highlights.
Don't forget about the empanadas.
Oh, and the empanadas.
We're all counting on those.
There's 300, they need 300 plus empanadas, so if there are any restaurants out there that would like to help donate some empanadas to the cause.
Middle school or the?
Yep, it's for FMS, for the Spanish students. I'm working on a relative, but 300 is a lot. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Kelly and Dr. Wiles. And last, policy. I know Nate is not here, but we did meet. Who else is on policy with me? Blanca and Rebecca? I think we met 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, we did a lot, too.
Yeah. And we went through a set of policies.
Which we did first read on.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Wiles. Next, we'll move on to public comment number 2. Linda, are there any other public comments? No, thank you. And then last, I'm sorry, Elizabeth, you have one. If you just say your name at the mic, Elizabeth, thanks.
My name is Elizabeth Floyd Mayer, and both of these may be impossible, but I just thought I'd ask. Can the float nurse be one of the 4 FTEs? Also, with the buses, can one of the 4 FTEs be made into a float nurse? Also, with the buses, is there any way on the ballot to explain that it's basically free? Or can that not be added to the Prop 2 about the electric buses to be reimbursed by the state?
About that last time, but I don't think it is.
There's probably, I don't know if there are
I mean,
rules
our
about.
bond counsel drafts a resolution. We shared everything with him, and he drafts it in line
Okay.
with what we have to do.
Okay.
So we'll have to wait to hear back.
No, it's in the the language of the resolution that was approved tonight
That's
just
it, so I can't
authorizes
add
the
it.
borrowing for vehicles.
So the ballot is not reader-friendly.
That's my
So
concern.
our job will be to make sure that the mailing that we do is very much clear language so people understand what they're voting for when they get to the ballot. But we can't control the language on the ballot. We have to follow the legal parameters so that it's binding.
What about the first question about the FTE?
In theory, yes, the unassigned could be used for that. We typically have used all of our unassigned down to like the last little bits and pieces on instructional kinds of needs. But, you know, I don't think there's any reason why it couldn't be if other needs did not emerge. So we hang on to those unassigned for unexpected changes in enrollment or other needs that come along. And so I don't like to use them too soon because unexpected things do happen.
If it were used as an FTE though, like one of the extras, then that would technically mean that the next year too, because it wouldn't be on a line budget for the floating nurse, they'd have to do the
Yes.
same thing.
Yes, unassigned
So
go
it
away
wouldn't-
at the end of the year.
It wouldn't technically be like the line item
Right.
official, and it would be,
You'd probably not want to do it that way if we're thinking long, I mean, but it sounds like that will be up on the list.
We can add it to the list. Yep.
Where is it going to fit in on the list?
We had to see the list first.
Well,
we had it
ultimately, where it fits on the list is up to the board. I mean, I make the list and it's somewhat
I don't remember the list.
in the order that I think of them. But ultimately, when the board adopts, you have the full list and you get to make your priorities. And it comes down to how much room is there to make a choice.
Okay.
Last but not least, board issues, ideas, and sharing.
Marie, I have a question.
Yes.
The Future Ready Task Force meeting we had to change it from March 28th, and I know you sent me an email, or probably to everybody, but
It's in April now.
It is, I think, April 9th.
9th, okay, so it's not the same day as the
April
communications.
9th,
April
yes.
9th at 6:30?
6:30.
6:30. Thank you, I'm sorry. I just-
Any other board issues, ideas, and sharing?
I do.
Oh, go ahead, Blanca.
I went to the Empire State Plaza today, and I was able to experience some beautiful music on the part of a select choir and jazz ensemble. And so I just want to congratulate all of our music department, but especially Mr. Fatuzzo and Ms. Golub, and all the students that performed today. They really make our school district proud. We have so much talent here. It's really heartwarming.
Great, thanks, Blanca. Anybody else? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Blanca, second. Kelly, all in favor? Use the gavel. Meeting's adjourned.
All right. I was going to say, I don't think I've ever seen you use that.
I used it once.